Hey guys, welcome to Beyond the Title. It's with such a great joy I'm going to introduce you to our guest today. Our guest comes with an incredible life experience. I want you to imagine right now somebody who spent time studying law. If you really look at it, the law is for two purposes. It is to stop evil and to enhance business. Just take a moment to consider those two things. So imagine somebody who spent lots of years understanding the law, and then, not only that, became one of the top accountants in Queensland, like top line accountant. Not only that, took to the next level and became an incredible financial planner. I want you to start to understand the degree of visibility, the degree of acumen, and helping people for a long time to be able to position themselves, to defend evil, to prosper, to create new businesses, enhance. And that's the kind of conversation we're going to have today right here in Beyond the Title. Damien McCann, it's such a great honor to have you here today, sir. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation, and are you ready to rock and roll?
I am. Thanks for inviting me. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today, Julia.
Damien, one of the things that we really like to do is to start to, discovering, pulling out of people their internal dialogues, their maps. Because so the person watching, they want to understand, yes, you have all these qualifications and so on and so forth. And you are known for how direct you are, how straight, how no time for nonsense, and you have helped people to really build great companies, great lives, right? So with that, anyone that looks you up, they will know that very quickly. So with that in mind, I want to ask you, and I have some notes, so I just want to ask straight from the notes, right? What is your real big truth about success?
Success to me involves time, commitment, clarity of goals, but most importantly, being in a position where you're content. It may not be the most wealthy person, it might not be someone that's the fastest or the best, but definitely someone that has the freedom of choice to choose their best life, to choose their own direction, to choose what they're going to do, and is content with the position they find themselves in. And it's a real joy to work with people who are content.
Right. Damien, do you think that people actually have the freedom to choose their best lives?
100%. I think that's one of the freedoms we do have. We have a myriad of choices in front of us in life. I think it's very important that people understand what their choices are and are well educated in terms of the options they have available. But yeah, in Australia, I definitely think we have the opportunity to really make of ourselves what we want to. And I shared a bit of my story with you before we went on air, Julio, about, where I've ended up is through my choices and my hard work. Decisions I made, sometimes with things going against you, sometimes making the wrong choices. But I look back and it's been an incredible journey, to be quite honest.
I know as a matter of fact that many people come to see you for your wisdom, and any given month you see people from all walks of life, all sorts of different size businesses and different lines of enterprise and so on and so forth. What is it that gives you, talking about choosing, talking about the life of your clients, the life of the people you're talking to, in your day-to-day, what is it that gives you the most joy?
The thing that gives me the most joy, the one single thing, is being in the privileged position of being able to talk to someone and saying financially you're in a position that you can make your own choices. If you want to change careers, you can change careers. If you want to pick and choose the jobs you do in your work, you can pick and choose the jobs you do. You have the freedom to do the things you want to. That is probably the most liberating conversation people have, particularly because a lot of them judge where they need to be from the media, from television, from whatever, not looking at what their personal goals are. So that is just, it's an incredibly enjoyable thing to do. To be paid for it as well makes it even better.
Wow. I hear from you that people having the ability to pivot, right? Yep. When they sit with you and they go, oh my God, I thought I was against this wall, against that, and you're helping them to be able to pivot and say, no, you can actually choose to go here, there, everywhere. So let me ask you this question this way. What was your very first pivot moment in life, right? Please describe it to us.
For me, I studied accountancy and law together and wanted to be a barrister. I sent out a stack of resumes at a time where it was kind of hard to get a job and I didn't have any great references, hadn't been to the best schools or anything like that. And I got employed by a very wise person who I worked for a number of years. I learnt enormous amounts from him, received a lot of wisdom, and I think it helped me make really good informed choices. And when I look back, that was probably the moment where my life changed.
Right. So so it's like you went from, rather than be a lawyer, you chose to go more down the accountant's route?
Definitely, because after the conversations I had, I worked out that law involves conflict, where with accounting, business, financial things, actually everyone can win and you can create better outcomes without conflict, and that's pretty enjoyable.
Okay. So let me just ask you this. So you having a legal background and having also the accounting background, you deal with lots of people every day, but you deal with lots of people with huge incomes from businesses, from their profession, specialists, dentists, doctors, right? What do you notice the most from people that have high income but yet no strategy, no financial acumen, right? They're just very good at what they do, and with that they make a lot of money, right? What would you say the gaps are?
I think the gap is them not previously having met someone they can trust to give them the right information, to help them make the right choices in a way that they have comfort, that they're not being sold to, but they're actually being guided and directed. And I think that's a really important distinction. I see a lot of people that give advice, but it's really hard for them to articulate why they're giving the advice they are. And I think we're in a world where high performers sometimes don't have the time or the ability to seek out people that can help them or direct them, or alternatively come across people that they don't really feel that trust engagement with.
See, I have a question here, but I'm actually going to change into a conversation, right, rather than put it to you. My next question to you is, do you believe in the quote, people need to ask for what they want? Do you believe in the quote, you need to ask for what you want? But just given the nature of the conversation we're having right now, I would say that some people may not even know what they want, right? And so given that little gap, we're just starting to address, right? Can you give me an example of people that have come to your life, they have high income, right? And yet they don't know yet what they want, and what do you do with that situation?
Yeah, I can. I talk to a lot of people who do come to me and they're uncertain of the choices they can make. What is interesting though is when you spend a little bit of time with them talking about holistic goals, you very, very quickly work out what people are seeking. I think sometimes they are reluctant to articulate that, or they believe that they're not entitled or they can't get there. Sometimes they don't know where to start. But I do find that after conversations with them, it's really a conversation about permission to succeed. And I'd probably go a step further than saying to someone that you need to ask for what you want, and even looking at my life and saying, if you want something, work for it, make it happen. Because we're in a country where you've got so much opportunity. If you're willing to make a couple of choices, take a small amount of calculated risk, and strive to achieve goals.
Yeah, I know. We'll talk about that off air, you and I, all the time, about how much opportunity actually there is, right? And people sometimes find themselves, in a groove where they just literally heads down, palms up, and they don't, too busy to get rich, too busy to get ahead, too busy to see the opportunities, right? So I'm going to make a comment. I'm going to tell you a phrase, and then I'm going to ask you for a comment. Cool? Something like this. I will describe the future to you. The future is full of opportunities laced with difficulties, right? The future is full of opportunities laced with difficulties. So somebody that is watching this right now, right, sitting with you and say, I actually want to get ahead in life. Do you have 1 or 2 or 3 pointers you could give to somebody? Again, let's go back to someone who is highly professional, very good at what they do, create good income, but from a greater perspective, right? Do you have a couple of pointers you would give someone?
When I'm talking to people about goals and long-term financial goals, I do explain to them that sometimes it's more about the strategy than an individual moment in time. So I would say to someone that's got fairly high income and goals that you need to pick a course of action and you need to stay the course of action, whether the seas get choppy or not. You still need to move forward because strategy wins every time, in my experience. I do think that people have a habit sometimes of looking at what's happening today, what was a news announcement today, when you're looking forward. When you look back, like the boat analogy I used, you forget about those peaks and troughs and you discover how far you've actually come if you stay the course. And sometimes you can change the course you're on. When I talk to people about financial wisdom and financial goals, it's normally only 1 or 2 degree change in direction. It's quite interesting. I'm into high performance cars. I race cars. And if I move the steering wheel 2 or 3 degrees in a 1,000 horsepower car, I end up in a very, very different position with a very, very small change.
Yes.
And financially, it's the same. If you take a small percentage of your income and take it from lifestyle and put it into investments, and it compounds, it doesn't take too long for you to be in a vastly different place, missing out on a couple of things you don't even notice you've missed out on.
Mm-hmm. Just before it's amazing. A couple of degrees of change in direction may change everything. Just before we started, we were off camera, right? And you said sometimes people think that they got to buy their house first. And you see now the emergence of some very strategic positionings where people could buy a property investment first, or 2 or 3, and then drive that and then have those properties buy their own home, right? I also want to bring 3 points here, right? Taxes and claimbacks, permission to buy houses, and a request for a bank loan. I like those 3 things. Every time I'm going to buy a house, I got to borrow the money. But I want to stay inside of this conversation a bit tighter, in a sense where if you want to be strategic about getting ahead in life, maybe you look at buying a property investment first before you buy your own home. Would you deliberate a little bit on that?
I, like most people, have probably been programmed that you buy your own house to live in first. And when I was a little bit younger, that was more achievable than it is now, being completely honest. Mm-hmm. So I now think logically. I think about the numbers rather than the emotions, and see that if I'm using a tenant and the tax office to fund the acquisition of a property that increases in value, that can move me forward a lot quicker than if I save money to buy a house to live in that may not even be the house I want to live in the long term. I'm settling for a house that I can afford rather than where I want to actually live. So to put that in context, I see people, my younger staff, that want to live by the beach. They can't afford to live by the beach, but they can afford to live by the beach and buy an investment property that's not by the beach. And in 10 years' time, they'll be a long way in front of someone that hasn't made a property acquisition. Because when we were talking before about the real truth about success, it takes time. All these strategies take time. So
deliberating a little further, the idea of, let's go and rent by the beach so we can have our lifestyle now, but we buy 1 or 2 property investments away from the beach and then get that paid down, get the 2 other partners, the taxman and the tenant, driving those assets which I get to own, right? And then literally I start building a chain reaction or a property portfolio, right? And one day I can borrow against them and then buy my house on the beach. Do you see the picture like that?
Very much so. And recently I've been talking to a few people that have the opportunity to continue to live with their parents. And the actual cost of servicing a property that they get the growth on is actually quite small. It gives them the opportunity to do things they couldn't have otherwise done because the banks won't let them because of life. Where the strategy that you've explained gives them the opportunity to make choices that will change their future direction. And what is really interesting, in 30 years of being an accountant, I can't think of many or any instances where people have come back to me and said, I wish I didn't buy that investment property 20 years ago. I just don't remember those conversations. I do remember a lot of conversations where people say, I wish I had have bought that property 20 years ago. It's interesting when you think about it.
From an accounting point of view, when somebody hears like, oh, you can depreciate a property, you go see your accountant, you're going to get a tax deduction, right, for owning a property investment, right? How would you explain that to somebody? Like, suppose says it's an accounting, we do it's by, an agreement that the house is depreciating while the house is actually going up in value. Can you speak to that, how that actually works?
Yeah, I can. And I think the easiest way of explaining it in my world is explaining it with mathematics and explaining it with a graph. So I do think that some of the calculators that we use in this day and age really help us with that. So depreciation is simply allowing for a tax office mandated amount for the diminution in value of an asset. So an example is the table that we're sitting at. We may have paid $500 for the table, but in 10 years' time, it's not going to have any value. So the tax office allows us to write that down because it depreciates in value. It's the same with the property. We're allowed to write off some of the things in the property, like carpet and lights and ovens, so on and so forth. We can claim that against our tax, but we don't write a check for that. We write a check for the property. So we're actually getting to claim on tax amounts that we didn't write a check for. The tax office is then giving us a partial refund or offsetting other tax, which assists us in the servicing of any loans or debt or reducing the operating cost or the opportunity cost of the property. So in reality, it's an intangible write-down that assists us with the servicing of loans.
I see. So basically then, from a practical point of view, let's just say you go out there, you buy a house for $650,000, and this conversation that you and I just had is over the next 10 years, you're going to depreciate the house from an accounting perspective, right? And then people get like, hold on a second, in 10 years, this house will be worth $1 million. $650,000 to $1 million in 10 years is achievable. But from an accounting perspective, you go, no, hold on. I'm actually going to claim the carpet. I'm going to claim the hot water system. I'm going to claim these things that are depreciating. Regardless, the house is actually going up in value. And that's the beauty of the accounting process, the honesty of people saying these things may be replaced, these things may be. So from an accounting perspective, the money that you paid in tax actually comes back to you.
That's correct. The proviso on that, though, is it has to be new build under current rules. So you're effectively looking at new build property. And in that respect, some of the numbers between a new build and a second-hand property can differ significantly because there's different tax allowances that we are entitled to. So if you had a 5-year-old property, a brand new property with exactly the same rent, exactly the same purchase price, exactly the same loan, you would get a better tax outcome on the new build property than the second-hand property. So I think it's really important to draw that distinction in terms of tax rules, which is also why it's important you talk to someone that actually understands and knows the rules well, because there are many, many nuances to them that can make a significant difference to the numbers. And ultimately, if I'm buying an investment property, it should be a mathematical decision more so than an emotional decision. And I think sometimes that's where people go wrong.
Right. Okay. So if I buy a second-hand property, I'll still get some deductions, but not as good as if it's a new property, correct?
That's correct. And there's significant differences between the two.
Okay. So the government wants to give better concessions to new properties to motivate people to keep the industry alive, to people to put money back on the table, keep carpenters and painters and builders and everybody else back at work. So it makes sense that they will give better allowances to new property. Is that correct?
Exactly. And I think part of the reason too is in Australia it's well documented that there's concerns about the amount of property that's available. Our Prime Minister has recently said that we need 1 million new properties in the foreseeable future. The government are planning to build 50,000 of them, but the other 950,000 fall to private industry. The ATO and the government are therefore motivating people with better tax outcomes to increase the number of available properties.
I see. Yeah. Now, let me ask you this, Dan. If a very high income person shows up in your life, and I'm just going to give you a description, right, of someone. Let's just say somebody's making $250,000 a year, $300,000 a year, comes to you, they have a personal mortgage, kids in very good schools, and basically some money going to super, and that's it. And they said to you, we want to prosper, we want to go ahead. Where does your mind go? Where do you go?
The first thing that happens is I get excited because I love changing people's lives. I love helping them have the freedom of choices. I love helping them make decisions that are going to move them forward. And what you've just described to me is someone where I have all the tools available to me. I have a degree of time. I've got serviceability. I've got someone that's willing to accept strategy and has achievable goals. So those engagements are by far the most enjoyable and rewarding ones for me personally, because 10 years down the track, I get to look and see how far their life has changed from where they were, making reasonably small changes to lifestyle, but significantly different changes to the direction they're heading. So this isn't a 1 or 2 degree change. This might be a 10 or 20 degree change in direction. Very significant over time.
Cool. Let me just then take this conversation somewhere else just for a second. We have an incredible pool of doctors and dentists as clients, right? Lots of them, right? And I have noticed that more than 50% of doctors in Australia today are new Australians. There's a lot of new Australians that are doctors here. And they do have a different appreciation because Australia is often a much better reality of where most people in the world came from. So we got here, we got stable governments, we got great lending facilities, we got a country that is expanding, we got all these different realities taking place, right? And the idea, that I can prosper way beyond just my salaries, right? Way beyond that. When a doctor shows up and says something like, I want to go ahead, I want to build, I would like you to make some comments on how much unaware most high-end professionals are about the rules. They can own incredible amount of equity or assets with very little outlay on their behalf. Like other people are paying for the money. That's where I want to go with this conversation. Would you expand on that for us?
Yeah, I can. And I suppose for anyone listening that is in one of those occupations, it's like me going to them and I have a really basic knowledge of medical things. They can explain so much to me that helps me understand what my choices are and options are. So when someone comes to see me that is very skilled in their field but hasn't had the opportunity to be correctly educated or is new to Australia, I think it's a real privilege. I spend a bit of time explaining to them what the Australian tax rules are, the framework that we can work in amongst. And I don't mean some of the strategies that are spooked that result in people getting in a lot of trouble. I mean the real deal, what the ATO do approve of, what current rules allow. I then spend a bit of time talking to them about the direction that they're on, the trajectory they're on, the options that they have, and where these things where they may end up by making some changes.
Okay.
This is often mathematically based, and when you talk about the amount that they have to invest in things, the discussions always come down to what equity do we have available, what's it going to take to service a property, what's your commitment. And particularly high income earners, when I take into account taxation benefits and depreciation, they're quite often surprised by how small the commitment is, if there's actually a commitment at all. Because there are times I look and the properties are not even cash flow negative, they're cash flow positive at today's interest rates, at mid-5s to 6% interest rates on today's rentals. So they're very exciting discussions when you're helping people understand the choices that they had and have that may not be in line with the options and opportunities they thought they had. It's very enjoyable.
I love this, man, because you see, as much as we sit here and we talk about life, we talk about connection, talk about, and often, I love the deliberation right now where you say they knew Australians, even people that are born here, often they do not know. They can't choose what they don't know, right? They're following models that no longer work. They're following models that were from their grandparents after the Second World War. And now we have so many other sophisticated ways of going about life, right? But I want to spin this. I want to have a conversation and go back at your personal journey, right? And bring things out. Like your birthday is very soon, very soon. And you start deliberating about your journey in life, right? What reflections are you making about your journey as you approach your next birthday?
I'm probably reflecting on some choices I've made. I look back at some of the lifestyle choices I've made, and I think if I had have made different investment decisions, where would I be today? I then think about that and think I've got some great life experiences, but now I have the opportunity to have the same life experiences and continue to build on my wealth, continue to, I suppose, expand on my causes, the things I believe in, the things I want to do, the places I want to go with my family, knowing that I have the freedom to do those things because of some decisions I've made. And I think for me, one of the pivotal things, I do this for a job, but we are so programmed that a few years ago I sat down and what would I tell a client? And I started to map and plot a course for myself as if I was a client. I looked at it and thought, wow, that takes me a lot further than I thought it would. It creates a lot less pressure and stress now, a lot less concern. It's giving me freedom, emotional and mental freedom to do some things I want to do with certainty that financially I'll be able to exceed the goals I had when I was 20 by so much. It's been a really good time of reflection to look at where I've come from and think, wow, if I came this far, now I'm better educated, more knowledgeable, wiser, where am I going to end up?
Damien, what is the nature of ambition? What is ambition? You sit with different people come, sit with you, different levels of drive. Look, different levels of drive, different levels of intelligence, different levels of ability to actually execute. So you see it all, right? But what is the nature of ambition?
To me, the nature of ambition is really dreaming big, I suppose. What am I going to do to dream big? And how do I dream bigger? How do I achieve those things? And you've listed a number of personal characteristics. And interestingly enough, it's not always the highest income earners. It's not always the smartest that get the furthest. often it's the ones that establish and commit to a strategy, take calculated risks, stay on a journey, and work really hard to achieve those goals and dreams. So I've worked with some exceptionally gifted people that have got an awful world champions in their field, and all of them, their ambition was always to be better tomorrow than they were today. Just continual ambition. I think a lot of them didn't start out, I want to be world champion or things like that. I just want to be the best I can be. And the things I achieved, I've won in sport. I've won a couple of national championships, and I never set out wanting to win a national championship. I wanted to be the best I could be. Turned out it was better than everybody else.
All right. What would you say to, now you're talking about choices, going for different things. If and your birthday is approaching, if you could go back in time and meet Damien 25 years ago, right? And he's still you, and you remember who you were then, right? But you are you now, and you know who you are now. What would be the couple of things you would say to Damien 25 years ago?
Life's going to have its ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
The failures will grow you and teach you and make you enjoy the successes more. That would be the philosophical side. The practical thing would be, mate, in your early years, some of your lifestyle stuff, take a risk, put a little bit of that aside, start building an asset pool in the background, and I'd be 15, 20 years in front of where I am at the moment financially. And where I am is pretty good. I don't think it's ever too late, but it would be so much better just by making that 2 or 3% course correction sooner.
Mm-hmm. So we made some commentary about it's not the income, it's not the smarts. You know, I'm very clear myself that, people spend what they earn. I was sitting with a couple of doctors last night and just talking through life. And so they were talking about, he was using words like, I don't have any cash flow. So I'm just listening very attentively. So I asked them, I said, how much are you making per annum? And they gave me a number, and it was actually much higher than what I expected to be. Young couple making good money. But I know people spend what they earn. It comes down to discipline of employing the money, of actually having the discipline to say 20% of my income, 30% of my income, 10% of my income will be deployed, to create wealth, to actually accumulate capital, right, underneath me, right, or underneath my family, and so on and so forth, right? Can you tell, I'm leading somewhere here, so when you sit with people, are there some markers for you? Can you tell those that will be rich, those that will just plateau, and those that doesn't matter what you do, they're just going to be struggling? Are there some things or characteristics that you see in the different groups?
Yes. And generally when you meet someone, when I meet a new client or someone I'm dealing with, I can generally character assassinate them within a number of minutes.
I remember that.
The ones that to me are the most successful are the ones that ask questions. They think about what you're saying. They respond to what you're saying. They don't necessarily blindly agree with what you're saying, but they really consider the direction they're going and what they should do. They're also the ones that have, and you use the term financial self-discipline, they have the financial self-discipline to understand that putting aside 5 or 10% of their income can change their entire life. Giving up on a small number of luxuries or living in one suburb different to where they have lived probably won't make that much difference to their life. So they're the ones that probably achieve the most. Listen to and take advice. They make changes in terms of their life where the changes are reasonable and achievable. And they're intentional in the things they do. And intentionality is a really, really big part of where I see people end up. I know in my life, the things I've achieved, I was intentional about what I did. I don't know too many people that are accidentally successful. most people are intentionally successful.
Right. This is an incredible segue for the conversation about this book, right?
That book's a bit confronting, just quietly, but anyway.
Tell me about it. Tell me why you find the book confronting.
Well, Julia, I first met you because some bald Brazilian guy dropped in a book to my office saying, "Is your accountant an idiot?" And I wasn't sure whether to be offended or not. So I started reading a couple of pages. And when I read a couple of pages, it was actually, there was a bit of wisdom in there. It was straight away, I was slapped in the face with, if you talk to an accountant and you ask them who their most successful people are and spend time with them, they've seen it all. They've seen people who have succeeded. They've seen people who failed. They've seen the characteristics and the difference between the two. Hopefully they've learnt from their experiences themselves. And like in my case, if I spend 20 to 30 hours a week with people running their own businesses, making life choices, I kind of get better at making life choices. So when I saw the title, "Is Your an Accountant an Idiot?" it was quite interesting because in my profession, I see some people who focus on tax or avoiding rules or this, that or the other. And to me, that's a little bit short-sighted, where I'm more focused on helping people achieve their goals and using my wisdom, my experiences, my involvement in people's successes and failures to help my new clients become successful. If they're successful, I too will be. So the direction we're going is linked together. But there's some things that were written in the book that really got me thinking about discussions I have with people and really amping up some of those discussions with people too. And when we first started, you referred to me as being direct at times. And I'm probably more direct than I used to be since I've read the book. Because ultimately people are paying me good money for my view and opinion on things, and I should really give it to them, not a sugar-coated version.
Yes. See, the segue or the conversation for the book is Your Accountant an Idiot? It's very much that. When you read the very first page, that's not a statement, it's a question, right? And I say to people, call your accountant. If you don't want to read this whole book, you just want to tap into the wisdom, I say, call your accountant and say 3 things. I love you, forgive me, and double my fees, right? People are like, what? Because exactly what we're discussing, the idea that you see people making life choices, what works, doesn't work. How do you tap to that wisdom? So just pay your accountant, double the fees, and whatever you paid to start with, so he will do your accounting work, let's call it that way. And the other part of the time is to actually talk strategy, to talk life choices, to talk about things that, where are you in efficiencies? And actually, the whole entire discourse of the book then is to enable people to have the better conversations, right? To go ahead and go ahead and go ahead. I'll say it again, go ahead. Because you see, I had another doctor, and we were totally taken. Had another doctor that showed up here, and I'll give you the numbers, because numbers have no feelings. So we're sitting with this doctor, hear me out, 58 years of age, a $2 million house, $500,000 worth of debt, okay? His wife is 12 years younger than him, okay? She works with him, okay? So the company pays her for managing the business, cool? And that is it. That is it. 58, $2 million house, $500,000 worth of debt, a wife that is being paid by the business. And we look at they knew Australians didn't really look at it too much. And that's it. So this is the kind of guy who I would say, brother, call your accountant, say, forgive me, I love you, double my fees. Because you keeping going as is ain't gonna happen for you. And this is why we love the software. This is why we love Wealth Go. Because you're just doing your life as is, ain't gonna cut it, right? So when you sit with people that have had great income and yet they have not acquired enough assets underneath them, where does your mind go?
The hardest step is the first one.
Yes.
I think people get a bit overwhelmed by I'm going to buy property or I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. And as I said, between you and I, it's between your business and my business. It's really simple.
Mm-hmm.
Brendan and Julie, we've been talking about buying property for 5 or 6 years. And how much time have they invested? 5 hours?
Right.
It's not that hard.
Yeah. I'm sure they would like to have done it, 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
Yeah, I think when they're a year down the track, they'll look and go, why didn't we do this before? And we'll do another one in 12 months.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say here with your comments, just do this, stop deliberating, stop planning, stop creating many excuses for yourself. You actually do plan. That's what your software does. It plans. I talk to people when I do financial planning. I talk to people about high growth investors, and they say to me, high growth investors, they go to the casino, right? And I go, are you kidding me? My high growth investors are pains in the ass. They never go to the casino. They question the crap out of everything. It's like an interrogation by the federal police. They want to know everything about everything. They just don't see the point in having their money in term deposit at 2%. They are probably my most focused clients because they're high net wealth and they're high growth. They didn't get there by just, taking a chance. They got there by Nike, just do it.
Yeah.
I wish I had have met you 10 years earlier. We have the scenario you've just explained. Mm-hmm. We have a bit of time on our side. Let's go. Let's do something. Let's change your life. Let's change the course and direction you're on. I've got so many tools available to me. I wish I could go back in time 10 years. I can't. So let's get on with it as soon as we can.
The purpose of this Beyond the Title, the purpose of the wisdom here is that we know some people are going to watch this conversation, right? Years earlier, they're going to be listening to it and they're going to be going, what's happening for us is we put so much AI into our software. We know what we are creating and giving people the capabilities of enhancing what's going to happen for them is the moment in which they put in the numbers, right? The numbers have no feelings, and it creates 3 timelines. 3 timelines. Keep going the way you are, and it is the as is. Because the software already understood. You in your 30s, in your 40s, you've already been living life in a certain way, right? So all the mathematics in it, all the tables in it are saying, you keep going the way you are going, matching your income to your expenses, having no tax planning, right? Have no accountant that you're talking to about prosperity, right? You're actually going to, that's you. And then the next option is when it goes, well, what if you just took out your inefficiency? It actually gives people their opportunity cost, how much they're burning, like how much the inefficiency is at that point. I love it. And then the next one is like, what if you were to take on the permission for being really rich, right? To be really rich. The reason why I'm deliberating like this, how, as a percentage, if you're to sit here and we were to look at accountants across Australia, right? What percentage of a typical accountant's database is significantly getting ahead, would you think? You think Pareto rule will play? What do you reckon? I
think so. I think it'd be 10 to 20%, maybe a little bit more, depending on the accountant. And I think the reasoning behind that is often about people's unwillingness to have conversations about ways to move ahead. Because you've just described a situation to me that I can't get out of my mind. I'm thinking about the 58-year-old doctor, and I'm thinking about the reasons that they wouldn't do something. Well, Julio, I don't want my lifestyle to reduce. I don't want to put money in investments. I love the way I live. The conversations I have with them is, you're in a profession where there's unlimited work. There's not enough doctors. There's not enough dentists. You can work as many hours as you want. If I could show you that your life would be significantly different if you worked 2 extra hours a week, would you do it?
Yeah.
If I showed you that your life would be significantly different if you spent 2% less a week, would you do it? They're the conversations that we actually have with people. And I think you're right. I think most accountants, we probably don't have enough of those conversations with people. Not because we don't want to have the conversations, but I think people are actually resistant to having conversations with us. I have people say to me, particularly in the medical field, I don't want to know where I'm at because it would concern me. I'm not going to give you a terminal.
It happens for me all the time.
I'm not going to give you a terminal diagnosis. I'm going to give you some outcomes and some opportunities that are generally time bound. So by that I mean that if I have a 58-year-old doctor come to me who have significant retirement goals, that they want to retire at 65, I might say to them, I don't think we're going to get there at 65, but we will get there at 70.
Yeah. Damien, if people want to find you, if people hear about you, they watch this and they want to find you, how can someone find you?
Well, like most people, we exist on the internet. We exist on Facebook. Our website is mckern.co, mckern.co. Mm-hmm. That's the easiest way to find us, or email info@mckern.co, or talk to Julio. You seem to know how to find me, the JDL team, and vice versa.
Yeah. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, for giving us so much insights. The purpose here, it really is to get people to become more inquisitive about their opportunities, what's possible for them. And I really want to thank you for coming out and play. I had a great interview. There's a few notes that I'm just dying to write it down as we finish this. Do you have is there anything else that if somebody's watching and they were to say something like, I really would like to get ahead, are there some steps or some pointers, so we close the interview, that you could give somebody who wants to get ahead in life?
Yeah, just one.
Yes.
I think you need to talk to someone with wisdom, meet someone with wisdom and say, show me how to get ahead in life. And I think you'll find it's a lot easier than you think. I know from my perspective, I've done this hundreds of times. It might be someone else's first go at doing it, but I've done it hundreds of times. You've done it hundreds of times.
Okay. So hey guys, if you have watched some of the previous episodes, please do sign up, do share the content. The whole idea is to give people wisdom. As we sit here with Makan, we are talking. Damien is saying it is not as hard as you imagine. You need to seek that wisdom. The interview with Dr. Tirak went incredible. The interview with Juliana, also amazing. And where we sit here right now and we tap to many, many years in accounting, helping business and so on and so forth. If the advice is take the time to seek the wisdom, that's what we're doing. And if you could leave a comment on the box below of videos you want to see, things that you're seeking to know, we will create that for you. So please subscribe, give us a like, and tell us what you want to know about, and we will bring it. Thank you so much to come to Beyond the Title.